Session 9. Sarah, 34 years old. Last week, Daniel's wife called. 2 women, 1 man. The same story from opposite sides. Today, Daniel reaches out, directly, for the last time. This is Session 9, in her own words.
I want to tell you about the last time I spoke to Daniel, 6 weeks after I walked out. A Sunday afternoon. My daughter was at her father's for the weekend, and the flat was quiet, and I was doing something ordinary. I think I was reorganizing a bookshelf when my phone rang, and it was him. Not a withheld number, not a lawyer, not James. Him. His name on my screen. The way it had appeared 1,000 times over 8 years. I stared at it for a moment, and then I answered. I don't know exactly why. Maybe because I was ready. Maybe because the quiet flat and the Sunday afternoon made it feel safe. Maybe because some part of me had been waiting for this without knowing it. I said, "Hello." He said, "Sarah, thank you for picking up." His voice was different. Not the voice I knew from conference rooms and Monday morning meetings. Quieter. Careful. The voice of someone who has rehearsed what they are about to say many times and is still not entirely sure it will land. He said he was sorry. He said he had been doing a lot of thinking. He said he hadn't realized, and I remember this phrase exactly, he said he hadn't realized the impact of his actions on the people around him. The impact of his actions. I thought about that phrase for a moment. It was the language of someone who had been coached. By a therapist, maybe, or a lawyer, or both. It was an apology that apologized for outcomes rather than choices. I said, "I appreciate you saying that." He said, "I mean it, Sarah. I know I let you down. I know things got out of hand. But I genuinely believed in you. I genuinely thought you were..." I said, "Daniel, I'm going to stop you there." Because I knew where that sentence was going. I had heard versions of it for 8 years. I genuinely believed in you. I genuinely saw your potential. I genuinely valued your contribution. All the ways of saying I used you without using the word used. He was quiet. And then he said, "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." I said, "Okay." He said, "Is there anything I can do?" I thought about that question for a moment. Anything I can do. 8 years ago, that question would have meant everything to me. 3 months ago, that question would have made me angry. That Sunday afternoon, it meant nothing. Not because I was cold, but because I had already built everything I needed without him. I said, "No, I don't think there is." He was quiet again, a longer quiet this time. And then he said, "How are you?" I said, "I'm good, Daniel. I'm really good." And I meant it. Completely. Without performance, without irony. I was good. Really good. New job, my name on everything, my daughter saying I looked like myself again, Sunday afternoons reorganizing bookshelves in a quiet flat. I was good. He said, "I'm glad." He didn't sound glad. He sounded like a man who had expected this conversation to go differently and wasn't sure what to do now that it hadn't. I said, "Take care of yourself, Daniel." And I hung up. I stood there for a moment, holding my phone, and then I put it face down on the shelf I had been reorganizing, and I finished what I was doing. I put every book back in the right place. I stood back and looked at it. And then I made tea, and I sat at my kitchen table, and I thought about 8 years. I thought about email responses and late nights and missed school plays and a Christmas campaign and a restructuring proposal and a client pitch in Chicago and a promotion that was never mine and a Tuesday morning in March when it rained and 2 sentences and 23 days of watching and 3 emails and a dark green jacket, and a daughter who said I looked like myself again. I thought about all of it, and then I let it go. Not because it didn't matter. It did matter. It mattered enormously, but I had carried it long enough. I had carried it carefully and precisely and with great patience, and it had taken me exactly where I needed to go. And now, I put it down. The way you put down something heavy when you finally reach the place you are carrying it to. You don't throw it. You don't smash it. You just set it down, gently. And you straighten up. And you look around. And you realize you're exactly where you were always supposed to be. I finished my tea. I washed the cup. I looked at my bookshelf. And I thought, next week, my daughter comes home. And I have a meeting on Monday morning. And my name is on the door. And I am not afraid. I am not angry. I am not waiting for anything. I am just here, present, in my own life, for the first time in a very long time, completely and entirely here.
He contacted you directly. How?
He called, a Sunday afternoon, 6 weeks after I walked out, his name on my screen. I answered.
What did he say?
He said he was sorry. He said he hadn't realized the impact of his actions. The impact of his actions. Not his choices. Not what he did. His actions. It was an apology written by someone who had been coached. I said, I appreciate you saying that. And I meant it. Not because it changed anything, but because it cost him something to say it. And that was enough.
And you answered him this time. Why?
Because I was ready. Because a Sunday afternoon in a quiet flat with your books and your tea is exactly the right place to close a door. Not in an office, not in anger, not with an audience. Just quietly. The way it deserved to end.
How did that conversation end?
I said, take care of yourself, Daniel. And I hung up. And I put the phone face down. And I finished reorganizing my bookshelf. And then I made tea. And I sat at my kitchen table. And I let it go. All of it. 8 years. 2 sentences. 23 days. 3 emails. A dark green jacket. All of it. I set it down, gently. And I straightened up, and I looked around. And I was exactly where I was always supposed to be.
We'll continue next session. What Daniel did, reaching out directly after everything that had happened, is something psychologists call a final control attempt. When someone who has lost all power tries one last time to reestablish a connection, not out of remorse necessarily, but out of the inability to accept that the story is over and that they are no longer the main character. Next time, the last session. Sarah tells us where she is now.